Hello, hello, hello. Happy Thanksgiving to all those that celebrate, which means more than anything. One, Drew Hannes, welcome to the show. Very thankful for you, my friend. It's been a great year with you as always. But more importantly, we got 3 football games tomorrow. We got a game on Friday. It's a great football weekend. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. Last week was hectic as hell in my life. So shout out to Jono from the fantasy show for covering for me, fantasy football show. It was rough, but life gets in the way sometimes. But this week, way better. Thankful for you too. Thankful that tomorrow I can watch 3 games of football, take a nap during the middle one.
2.5, maybe. I don't know what's going to go on with that Dallas game, but
yeah, I'll fall asleep at halftime for sure. I'm pretty sure Machine Gun Kirby's playing again. So
oh no,
he's every single halftime show, and I don't want to see that. So
you know what though? I feel like the Thanksgiving games do have a bit of magic to them. If Cooper Rush can give another QB1 performance, who knows? Anything's possible.
Just the Lion game every year is just such a treat for me. My grandfather was a Lions fan. Fortunately, he was not here to see them actually be good, but
yeah, we'll see. I mean, they're looking real nice. But you know what else is looking real nice? One, questions in the chat. If you got them, hit us with them. We'd love to answer them for you. But 2, more importantly, Drew, I don't know if that lab coat's going to be fitting next week because I know you're going to be going off. So let's throw on the lab coat. What do you got for me on the injury front?
It's starting not to fit already. When you'll find out when you have your baby, dude. I never had the freshman 15, but I'm having the freshman baby. The baby weight is coming big time. But I actually got a longer list than normal. Some of this stuff might not have too big of fantasy relevancy, but I felt like it was worth mentioning because it impacts other people. We'll start with Cedric Tillman. He suffered a concussion. He was a guy that was coming on late for us. We were looking at him as a flex play. Concussions, you know how they are. I'll say it now because there's a couple of them. Non-linear injury. You never know how long it's going to take certain guys to get over the concussion. We saw Malik Neighbors took 2 weeks earlier this season. So he's probably going to be out this week, and we'll monitor him week to week. I can add Romeo Doubs to the concussion. He's already out this week. And then Austin Eckler, also with a concussion. His was brutal. I know that you were busy on Sunday and you missed a lot of football, but did you see that?
I didn't. No, I honestly, the only thing that I saw was the second half of Sunday Night Football. But yeah, not good.
It was brutal. Yeah, he took a shot on that last return, and you could see his head was turned when he took the shot. So when he took that impact, it went even farther around, and it was brutal, and he did not move. Eventually, it looked like he gained consciousness, and they got him back up. So hopefully he's okay. Obviously, all these guys, hopefully they're okay, but Austin Eckler's was really scary. I also want to add real quick, Brian Robinson suffered an ankle injury. There's not really any information on him that he's probably going to be a game-time decision. I went heavy on Jeremy McNichols.
Yeah, I saw that, bro. You were throwing the fab like crazy.
Yeah, I don't think Brian Robinson's going to play. He's been in and out the last 6 weeks, just trying to play if he was active, playing a couple series, maybe a quarter, then being out again. So I don't feel good about that. And Jerry McNichols has he's shown flashes throughout the season. He's a guy I feel confident in starting if both those guys miss for sure. So
yeah,
I'm surprised that in all my leagues, I didn't really have much competition with Jeremy McNichols. I don't know if people aren't realizing.
I think there's a lot of optimism that Brian Robinson is going to play, and I think that is suppressing that. I think what you'll see most likely, especially in redraft, I know Dynasty, there's not really a lot of pickings out there, but I would imagine that once they make the call on Brian Robinson, they're going to kind of go. Because I don't think people view him if Robinson was to play, is he really a receiving back? I
don't know if it matters though, because he's
but they're definitely going to get work. So I think he's a good pickup either way. But right. Yeah, if he gets that bell cow role, they also, what was interesting, is it Rodriguez?
Chris Rodriguez, yeah.
Chris Rodriguez, they signed back up. Yeah, so We'll see. I mean, it's all pointing to those two kind of getting the nod this week. So it'll be very interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, and then tomorrow we got 2 guys that are typically in our lineup. So this is big. David Montgomery suffered a shoulder injury, and Amon-Ra St. Brown suffered a knee injury. Both are expected to play, but they're probably going to be game time decisions. But everything that I've seen is that you expect them. I think Amon-Ra is just a really tough dude, and so is David Montgomery. I feel like they're both going to play, but it's definitely something to be aware of heading into tomorrow.
Yeah.
Josh Downs also suffered a shoulder injury. He's expected to miss a few weeks. So this is going to be big for, Michael Pittman, who's kind of been up and down this season. And the dude's just like, I don't even know how he's playing with all the injuries he has, but he's been showing up the last few weeks. So there's going to be more opportunity for him. And we've talked about Adonai Mitchell as a guy. Alec Pierce has been good as well. So you can definitely elevate those guys. But Josh Downs is probably going to miss 2 or 3 weeks. I don't think that he's an IR candidate at this point, but he's definitely going to miss some time.
I'm really curious how they utilize the slot with Josh Downs getting hurt. I don't really see Mitchell as a slot guy. So do they slide Pierce in and move him to the outside? Like, I'll be very curious to see what that ends up looking like for them.
I feel like they like to run Mo Alley Cox into the slot a bit too. So I feel like he could just see some more snaps and more routes this week, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure.
And there's still a few more. J.K. Dobbins suffered a knee injury. He's already expected to be out this week. I expect him to miss a couple weeks.
I get very much Rashee Rice vibes from the way that this is unfolded. It's been so quiet.
Yeah, they reported it earlier though while you were working that it doesn't seem to be bad. But he's going to miss a few weeks. He has a knee sprain. I suspect he probably has an MCL sprain.
I know that whenever he tore his knee up, he had some LCL damage too. So I wonder if that could be playing into it as well. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with it. Gus Edwards, hasn't looked that great. Everybody beginning of the year, Kamani Vidal, he was the sleeper. Is this his shining moment? I'm more interested in adding him than Gus Edwards, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I went with Edwards because I think he's going to get the goal line work for sure. But they were giving the ball to Hassan Haskins quite a bit too, even when Dobbins was on the field. So I feel like he's being slept on quite a bit. He has ties to Harbaugh when they were at Michigan together. So that's something that people shouldn't be overlooking.
Sure.
Vidal was actually the guy that I looked at the least, just because he's been healthy and active for most of the season. If he couldn't get ahead of those guys, and they're competitive, it's not like one of those situations where we want to see what the young guy can offer us,
right?
Because we're out of it. But that's not their case right now. They're competing for playoff spots. So I feel like they're going to go with guys that they trust, and I feel like Harbaugh trusts Haskins quite a bit. And I could see him as a guy that can fly up out of nowhere.
I think if Vidal doesn't get picked any use at this point, to me, it's all right, you're donezo. We talked at the beginning of the year that he was a cut candidate for a while and then kind of picked it up there at the end.
Yeah, I completely faded him after the reports that he might not even make the team.
Yeah.
And that's basically what happened in my eyes. They just kept him on the practice squad. He wasn't good enough to get a hat, and he wasn't good enough to even get a hat when Gus Edwards was hurt. So it's you know what I mean? He was just a guy I wasn't really interested in, but I can see why there's appeal because you don't know what that backfield is going to look like. No one's really running away with it. But for me, I think Hassan Haskins is a sleeper, and I think Gus Edwards is going to get the goal line work. So he's the guy that I've been focusing on first. But we'll wait and see how it plays out. Breece Hall popped up on the injury report today, and he's unlikely to play.
That's crazy. That came out of nowhere. I feel because he finished the game, there wasn't anything really there.
I had no idea he was even hurt. I had no idea he was even hurt until I saw that report. So that's a big deal. If Braylon Allen is available, he's a must start for me. I don't know what their matchup is. I don't think it's the Seahawks.
So Jets, Seahawks. Seahawks have actually been one of the toughest matchups in the last 2 weeks to running backs. Playing Arizona, San Francisco, and the Rams, and that was with the return of CMC. So tough sledding, but I will say the running back position in general right now is very crowded. If you have somebody that's going to be getting that much work, I don't see a scenario where I couldn't play him.
Yeah, he's in my lineup. I kind of the Seahawks have been good, like you said, but CMC was his first game back, so it's kind of it's not 100% CMC.
Yeah.
The Cardinals were just ugly last week all around. I don't even know if you can even take anything from that game. They just didn't show up.
No.
Who's the third team you said?
The Rams.
Rams. Yeah. I mean, Kyron's a good back, but they've been throwing the ball quite a bit. So it's tough to say over the last 3 weeks. I feel like they're more middling matchup, but like you said, if Braylon Allen's getting the work that we expect him to get.
Yeah, well, the thing is they've been giving up 14.2 points in the last 3 weeks. If Braylon Edwards is the only running back on the field and he gets 14.
Cleveland Browns legend, Braylon Edwards.
Wow.
That's what you said, just in case you missed that.
Did I really?
Braylon Edwards, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's good. I just had to say that. It was funny. I do have 2 more injuries, though. Gardner Minshew broke his collarbone. He's the guy that I was just like, we're not really starting him, but I feel like this is bad for Brock Bowers. It's a small sample size with Aiden O'Connell. He's returning this week, but he did not look good. He did not target Brock Bowers quite often when he played that one start. It is a small sample size, so we'll see. But Minshew is really peppering Brock Bowers, so we'll have to see how this looks. Aiden O'Connell did flash last year, though, so we'll see what it looks like. Jacoby Myers looked really good, though, too. I feel like he's the guy that he would focus on more because he's more familiar with him.
He's been on a heater.
Yeah, he had a really good game last week. So that's the guy that I feel like has an uptick with Aiden O'Connell, but I'm kind of worried about Brock Bowers. So something to monitor. I mean, hopefully that team just knows to get him the ball. But Aiden O'Connell has more of a rapport with Myers. I feel like it's an uptick for him, but we'll see.
Kansas City, though, I feel like they do really good at eliminating like your top options. So I think they're really going to be all over Bowers this week.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that to your point. I feel like this is a Myers game.
Why do you say that?
Is that
maybe?
I didn't
even tell you because I haven't really talked to you this week.
Yeah.
Code. They'll make more sense later. Any other updates for us on the injury front, Drew?
Yeah, last one. And I kind of threw this bomb at you right before the show, and because I haven't been here the last show, and this kind of flew under the radar a week earlier. This isn't something we're worried about right now with redraft, but it's something that I felt like it was really important to point out. JJ McCarthy, who we all know suffered an ACL injury or MCL injury. It was MCL. Yeah. He tore his MCL in the beginning of training camp. We came into this season. We talked about it in one of our first couple of shows that like he wasn't a guy I was really worried about because it was so early in the season. We knew that he's probably going to have some growing pains his first year back in 2025. But the fact that like we're now into the middle of November and he had to have surgery again due to a swelling issue.
And that puts him in jeopardy from like starting like the full offseason program, which you're going to want given that he hasn't played a game yet. Yeah,
this is a big problem for me, especially if I'm owning him in Dynasty. I don't have any shares of him in Dynasty. But if I did, I wouldn't feel good about it because we always knew that he was going to have the growing pains, as I mentioned, but now the growing pains might linger into 2026. And like they're a competitive team. What kind of leash is he going to have in 2026 if he's struggling due to those growing pains? Like that's a problem for me, especially because a lot of people spent like top 7 picks on him.
Well, he crept up. I mean, if you looked at like the board, there were situations where he was going ahead of May because he went to Minnesota.
Yeah, because people were just looking at the roster, not the player, which is, I mean, I've made that mistake with certain players like Treylon Burks. I'll never get over that. I was big on Burks because of his where he went in the draft, but like this is not good for JJ McCarthy because Sam Darnold's playing well. They brought in Daniel Jones today, signed him.
They signed him, yeah.
So like JJ McCarthy is kind of like fading away because of this injury, and even though you spent a top 15 pick on him. Like he was 11th or something, 11th,
12th,
yeah, 11th pick overall pick. Like you expect him to get on the field, but like he missed all of his rookie season. He might not even start the season because of where he's at. He might start on the PUP next year. So you're looking at a guy that might not play until week 7, have no NFL exposure. He was already pretty raw coming into the draft. This is rough for dynasty owners because he might not – it's going to be tough for him to pan out without the playing time, and it's going to be tough for him to get the opportunity with how this injury is playing out. So
Yeah.
definitely something to monitor over the next couple years. Honestly, like it's going to take a while to figure this out.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how it develops. I'm kind of curious as can you get him as like a buy low for someone that has like dire QB situations like myself?
Or a team that is going for a championship now and they don't need him. You know what I mean? If you get up a guy that like Will Levis, like say what you want about Will Levis, but his playoff schedule is insane.
Yeah, so you've hit a lot of things that have hit in the comments, so I'm going to start busting through right now on those. So to your point, let's see what we got here. So let's just start with that one you just said. How painful is it? Best rest of season schedules belong to Bryce Young and Will Levis. It's going to be some desperate 6 seed that's going to upset us by playing one of them. So Chad's with us. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Chad, as always. Appreciate you being here. But yeah, it's going to be super interesting. They both have fantastic schedules. Bryce Young also QB1. You heard it here first. Rest of season. I'm finally going to win that trade. Talk to me nice. We'll see what happens there. Couple other ones we got. Chad's bold prediction: Daniel Jones, Week 1 starter, 2026 for the Vikings. Don't hate it. I mean, could you imagine being like a quarterback and wanting to have like a better revitalization? Like Kevin O'Connell. Fantastic for that. I mean, he got Dobbs pretty much another contract. He's going to get Sam Darnold a shit ton of money. Like, I would go there. It makes a lot of sense.
I feel like Darnold's going to stay, though.
I don't know.
Why would he leave?
Because of the competition around him. I just don't know where he would go.
He's winning that job right now.
Yeah,
maybe. I feel like Daniel Jones is going to come back to the Vikings unless someone I could see the Browns just doing something really stupid. But
yeah, I don't know. We shall see. All right, so let's jump back to the top before we get into our headlines from last week. So Mr. Magic sitting in second, 5-game win streak with Purdy and Dobbins potentially gone. Yeah, I think you'll be all right. But his question, who would you rather have on your team in fantasy in real life, Higgins or JSN? I think off the rip, fantasy right now, I know Higgins has been good when he's played, but the injuries kind of scare me. And that's kind of been like his thing throughout his career. So if I'm looking at fantasy points per game on the season, Higgins is tied for 4th with Amon-Ra. So he's at 18.5 as he comes back. So his games that he's played, 29, 18, 14, 29, 12, 6.9 week 3 against Washington. No slouch for JSN. He's averaging 15.2. So he is 15th in points per game on the season, but he's been on a heater lately. 37 against the Rams, 21 against San Francisco, 19 against Arizona. Got the Jets, the Cardinals, Packers, Vikings, Bears to finish out the season. If we're looking at T. Higgins, that schedule, they've got Pittsburgh, Dallas, Tennessee, Cleveland, Denver, Pitt. Both pretty brutal schedules, to tell you the truth. I think that Higgins probably has the better schedule. I think Higgins has the better quarterback. So assuming that Higgins can stay healthy, I think I would rather have Higgins. In real life, I probably would want JSN just because he's younger, and then I got like the cheaper contract for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a toss-up for me. I feel like I couldn't answer this over a full stretch. I feel like it's week to week for fantasy based on who has a better matchup because, I mean, Higgins is second fiddle, so is JSN, but I feel like JSN's been really flashing.
Yeah.
Based on the injury history, as you point out, I would lean JSN. But I feel like they're kind of a toss-up, to be honest, with how they're playing right now.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, it's a tough one. I think the money, it's crazy how expensive wide receivers are anymore. So T. Higgins needs a contract. So real life, it's like, give me the cheap guy that's got 3 more years on this deal. Higgins, I think, because I don't know. I just like the Cincinnati schedule rest of the season just a smidge more. And Joe Burrow's balling right now. So it's like, I'm going to let him keep doing his thing. Got Ricky Duncan in the chat, as always, my friend, right on time. So good to see you, my friend. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Hope you're doing something fun. Cat for life, gentlemen. Love the emojis. Knicks and Darnold literally just finished up picking Levitz 20 seconds ago. Then you guys mentioned him. I think that's the Jewish Will Levis. But hey, he can ball. That's fine. Let's see. Would you pick up Vidal and drop Abdullah? I would say no. I don't think
Abdullah looked good last week. His matchup's
did.
not good this week, but he looked the part more than the other backs. I feel like Madison's been okay, but I feel like he looked like eye test. Abdullah looked better.
Yeah, and I don't know what's going to happen this week as far as the injuries because the Hall of Mid, he kind of fits into that too. But if he's getting the bell cow role, then I'm fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say I wouldn't make that move right now unless both the other running backs are going to be back. I don't think Madison and White have practiced so far this week. So to me, it's like hang on to Abdullah until you get the bad news. Vidal, like he's probably not going to do anything. So you're not really you're going to just be putting yourself at risk to lose a potential starter.
If you're a Vidal guy, that's different though. But I'm just
but even if you are a guy like Vidal is going to not get picked up, and he will be there if you drop Abdullah later. It would just be foolish to drop him at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see how you could really do that. All right, so Rams defense, Cowboys defense this week.
I think this is pretty easy. I know you're looking stuff up, but
I was going to say Cowboys.
I think it's a slam dunk Cowboys because they're going up against Drew Lock, who's just going to fire it out there. I'd be shocked if he doesn't throw a pick. So you're getting 2 points right off the bat. They're at home on Thanksgiving. Cowboys play up on Thanksgiving. I think that the Cowboys are an easy yes start this week for me.
Yeah, I would say so too. There's a guy on Reddit. I don't know what his real name is, but his handle is Subverted Down. He does a lot of different projections. He has the Cowboys listed as his second favorite start for defenses for the week. He's projecting 9.7 points for them. Only team that he has above them is the Chiefs.
Which it's Aiden O'Connell at home. It makes sense.
Yeah. So I would roll with the Cowboys. I've picked up the Cowboys. Other teams that are in his top five, Texans, Broncos, Bills, probably not available. So I would roll with the Cowboys, even though they've struggled this year. Dr. Drew, Labcat back on. Any word on Devonta Smith?
He didn't practice today, so it's already trending the wrong way. So monitor throughout the week, but he's not practicing yet, so there's no point in thinking that he's going to play.
Yeah, feel that. Chad's retiring from fantasy football. Sad to see it. We never made it onto your show, and you never made it on ours, so that's kind of disappointing. But played for the 1 seed in bye week, started P-Ron over Justice Hill, and proceeded to lose by 0.3 to Saquon. You deserved it. P-Ron? That's tough. Honestly, yeah. I don't know what I would have done between those two, so I can't really say shit.
I mean, I don't really know what their snap counts look like, but we've seen Justice Hill being more involved for the Ravens. I don't know.
What are you doing with our boy Marv Harrison Jr.? Would you start him over Pop Douglas or Devon Bele?
I have a lot of exposure to Marvin Harrison, and I'm just like throwing him in my lineup but hoping for the best because you know how I am. If I spend a second-round pick on a guy, I'm just going to ride him out and hope for the best. And it's really – I really don't think that it's a Marvin Harrison problem. I really think it's a Kyle Murray problem.
I saw a stat the other day. They were saying as far as like getting multiple steps of separation on a defender, Marv is like 6th in the league.
Yeah. I like Devon Bailey, though. I added him in a bunch of leagues, and I mean, he's getting like 9 targets a game right now.
Yeah.
Like as of late. I like him as an option, but for Marv, I just throw him in there and just hope for the best. Like he's not a guy that I'm going to bench because you bench him and then he goes off for 30. He's done that.
I was contemplating putting him in my drop list this week, so I would not play him under any circumstances. I would put floor gods in before both of them.
Yeah, he's still going to be in my lineup. I'd hate myself if he goes off. Yeah. That's really where I'm at.
Yeah. All right. Last one, and we'll jump into some headlines here. So Ricky Dunn versus Atlanta, the cardio god himself, or Deebo Samuel struggling mightily going against Buffalo, assuming that Purdy plays.
It's so funny that Deebo's a question right now, but it's absolutely warranted. He's right to say that.
Yeah. So Atlanta gives up really good matchup. They're actually the best matchup on paper for wide receivers. gun to my head, if I have to pick one, I'm probably going to pick QJ, which shocks me because I have never liked QJ. I got forced into drafting him in one of my leagues in Dynasty and then shipped him out as soon as I could last year, probably at minimal value. And I have no regrets about it.
I turned QJ into Anthony Richardson this year, so.
That's a vibe. I love that. So I'm running with QJ just for the matchup. He got the targets. He just forgot how to play football.
Yeah. In terms of, the Niners situation, Brock Purdy practiced today. He threw one pass and felt like he couldn't do it. Doesn't sound like he's going to play. And, of course, Kyle Shanahan said at the beginning of the week that he expects him to be out there. Like, the dude's a lying sack of shit. Don't take anything he says about injuries.
How great is it going to be when I out-tank Platt with Purdy?
He's hurting, actually. He texts me all the time. He's the funniest dude ever, though, when he tanks. Like, he has this, like, gif of him, like, driving a tank, and it's just him going like this. And he sends it to me every Monday or every Tuesday after he loses. It's hilarious.
Unbelievable. But, yeah, I've jumped him, and I'm number one right now. So
yeah, if you get Ashton Gianti, because he's been tanking for him, he'll be so beat up over it.
Like, I know. It would be great. So
yeah, I'd go Quentin Johnson too. I think he's gonna have a bounce back game.
He can't do worse.
Yeah, it was just a weird night for him. He's been playing really well. He had touchdowns in like 3 or 4 straight games before last week. Like I'm not really worried about him. Good matchup. I think you play him. Debo is just like, if Brandon Allen starts, which I expect him to, you cannot start anyone besides CMC or Jawan Jennings. Like, I'd start him. He's been like the Niner that you want this year.
I would say Kittle would fall into that mix too. Kittle
kind of fell off a little bit though last week. He did have a touchdown though, I think, didn't he?
But with the tight end situation, like,
yeah, Kittle's a must start.
Yeah.
He's not a guy I was even really thinking about because
he's such a start.
Yeah.
Sick. So let's transition a little bit into the headlines for the week. We would be remiss to not talk about the one, the only Saquon Barkley. What an absolute stud that man is, right? I mean, that performance last week was one of the most ridiculous things that I've ever seen. I'm really fascinated by this statistic that's popped up. If you look, it was like Derrick Henry, Saquon, and then Josh Jacobs. And they're like, here's their records on this new team. Here's the records of their old team. Maybe running backs matter. And it's like, well, those teams still would suck if, like, the Giants wouldn't be good if Saquon was on the Giants. The Raiders wouldn't be good if Jacobs was on their team still. And the Titans wouldn't be much better replacing what they've got with the weird running back situation that they have. Although I will say that Tony Pollard looked really good. 90% workload last week. He tore it up. But I'm shocked that they didn't go out and try to trade these guys knowing that they weren't part of the future plans. Like, why would you just give up a premium player for free? All that to say, Drew, what are we feeling about the running back situation right now? Saquon, I mean, he's got to be front runner, fantasy MVP.
Oh, it's no question. I went through his whole season. The dude has 5 games with more than 30 points. Like, for a running back,
it's absurd.
Yeah. He has 6 of his 11 games where he had at least 20. Like, he's literally only been under 10 points twice, and it was just like really weird games. Like, the dude's just been unbelievable. Joe Shane should have been fired at halftime of their game last week. Like, when he ran for that 70-yard touchdown again, the dude, they should have just called him out and be like, don't even bother coming into work tomorrow. Like, we're done with you. Like, the way that they broadcasted his inefficiencies as a GM on Hard Knocks and the way he just completely mishandled that situation, the dude should have been long gone.
But he has his chart that had all of the colors on it for the draft.
Like, he was just like, oh, I heard Philadelphia's out. How do you not know that they're in? Like, how do you not know? And then how do you think that, like, Saquon's just going to come back after how you've treated him and, like, give you an opportunity to match? Like, he was just in that whole phone call, you could just hear in his voice, he's like, yeah, great. But, like, the dude was just out of it. Like, he had no interest even talking to the dude. Like, it's ridiculous. And Derrick Henry's a monster. Like, we're going to continue to say, like, he's going to hit that wall. That
everybody's going to say it so that they can be right when it happens.
Yeah. It's bull, though. Like, I traded for him a couple weeks ago ahead of a deadline in Dynasty, and, like, I'm not even worried about it. I expect him to be on my roster as a RB1 next year. I wouldn't be shocked the year after because the Ravens are just going to run him in a way that, like, even if he does lose some efficiency, like, from his age. Like the way they operate their offense, he's always going to be a viable option until he doesn't want to be anymore.
Do you think there's anybody in the league this year that would fit into that mold of like they're maybe not on a good situation or a good team that you could buy low on in the offseason, or you could probably draft at like a discount next year? So anyone that comes to mind for you, like somebody that I'm thinking about a lot is like, I feel like you're going to be able to ETN. I think Deontay Johnson, you're probably going to be able to get for free next year. I have no idea what the Ravens are doing.
It depends where he goes. He's a free agent.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like you have players that are either going to be in a new situation. Jacksonville's going to have a new coach next year. But you have players that are free agents. It's like, all right, they kind of have this suppressed value, but is there something that's going to change to make it better? I could even see somebody like a Breece Hall if Aaron Rodgers ends up not coming back. Like I could see that working out more in his benefit.
Devontae Adams, because he's going to go somewhere else.
Yeah,
they're not tied. He's not tied to them after the season either.
Yeah.
Alvin Kamara is an interesting dude though, because they like just extended him, but like
with no money, I don't know how they did it.
Yeah, I feel like he should have went somewhere else, like in the offseason. I feel like that would have been better for him, but like he's just committed to the Saints. I don't know.
Chris Godwin, maybe.
Well, he's a free agent, but the fact that he's just had injury after injury after injury, I feel like he's going to get on like a 1-year prove-it deal with the Bucs and just stay.
Yeah.
That's just the feeling I get from him.
For sure, for sure. All right, so we got one more from Ricky Dunks before we get into Fantasy Football Tinder. This week, T-Law or Russ if Purdy is out? I feel
Isn't Trevor Lawrence like low-key like done for the year?
Trevor Lawrence has a pretty tough matchup against Houston too. Offensive line's pretty porous, and Houston's defense has been balling. So to me, I don't see how you can start him. Cincinnati, they've been a positive matchup for quarterbacks, giving up 21.1 points per game in the last 3 weeks. If Pittsburgh's going to have any shot, it's going to have to be in a shootout fashion, or they're going to at least have to be able to put up points to keep up with Joey Burrow. So I think Russ is the easy answer. I would honestly play Russ over Purdy if he plays.
I agree. But Purdy's going to be out, I think. Russ has a great matchup, and to your point, they're going to have to put up points. Yeah. I'm pretty sure Trevor Lawrence is done for the year. Like, it's not like they basically said that they're
basically just not playing him because it's not worth it kind of thing.
No, he's just really beat up. Like, I think that he just can't play physically, and I just don't think that they're, because of who they are as an organization, they don't really have an outlook on their future, that they're just kind of have him linger around. Yeah, that way they can get him reps. But I feel like he should be on IR and not playing. Yeah. I don't think that – I don't think you could drop him until they actually definitively say that. But I feel like Trevor Lawrence is not going to play another game this year.
Yeah.
That's my vibe.
Very much could be the case. But keep the questions coming. We're going to transition into Fantasy Football Tinder. So if you haven't been a part of that before, let's just explain a little bit of what that looks like. So let's get the screen situated here. Act like we've been here before. There we go. So this is a little bit of something that we call Fantasy Football Tinder. So if you haven't been on the show, this is the way that it works. This is our buddy Zach. If you haven't followed Zach on Twitter, then you're extremely messing up. If you haven't found him on Blue Sky, I don't know. Be mad about that too, I guess. But Zach is taking a lot of time in the offseason to review his tape and make sure that he is in peak performance for Thanksgiving this year. So we wanted to just know from the crowd that we think that he has taken the steps to stack plates tomorrow in the big feast. If you know Zach, you know that he ain't going to be messing around. He's the big chef, big Meech. He's going to get it done. So we're going to swipe right. You'll see that with the hearts on the screen. If you don't believe it, if you think he's gotten too slim now, he's getting rid of all of his oversized Steeler jerseys, and you're like, nah, man's going to probably be eating a salad and taking a nap. Might swipe left. I might swipe left as well, but he didn't hear me say that. So that's kind of how we got things going here. So, Drew, let's start. Rookie darling in the fantasy football community, Jayden Daniels. Potentially a little bit of a red flag here. Last few weeks, granted, he was QB1 with that giant bomb of a touchdown to Terry McLaurin, but entering the third quarter didn't really look that hot. Struggled the last few weeks before that. Are you jaded at all by Jayden's performance?
This Tinder's actually really funny because I texted you like with 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter about how I was just like, we needed to talk about Jayden Daniels, and then he just went off for like 175 and 2 touchdowns.
That whole game was so weird. It was like the score was in the teens with like 6 minutes left, and then the game ended up like 30 to 20 something.
He went from being like QB 13 to QB 1 in a matter of 2 minutes of game time. It was just ridiculous. But we still need to talk about him because that is fluky. Like the fact that that happened was fluky. Terry McLaurin's touchdown was insane. Like, what the hell were the Cowboys even doing? Like, it made no sense to me watching that play, but I was psyched because I have him in a lot of leagues. But I'm swiping left. And this was so difficult for me. Like, you asked me last time if I was going to swipe left or right so you could prepare the show. And I was like, I still need more time to think about it.
Drew was like, I'm going through a tunnel. Sorry, bye.
Yeah. I really needed to digest this again overnight. But I'm sticking to my guns, and like I'm swiping left for a couple of reasons. I don't like their matchups over the next 3 games. They have a bye week next week. So these 4 weeks here, I'm not feeling good about it. I feel like the Titans are like a middle matchup, but I also feel like they have a good defense and they could sneaky like give him fits. They have the bye. The Saints have been really good against quarterbacks, only giving up 14.9 fantasy points to quarterbacks over the last 3 weeks. The Eagles destroyed him last week. All that he got was just garbage time, or 2 weeks ago, just garbage time. Yeah. He got a touchdown late and he was nothing. And the Cowboys just gave him fits this past week, who they end up with. They have been giving up 23.1 fantasy points over the last 3 weeks, but like that's really inflated by that last 2 minutes where he had those 2 touchdown passes. Also, like it's a divisional matchup and they were playing him really, really well for a majority of that game. And I was watching the entire game and I just was like, the vibes on the Commanders as a whole, and this is where I swung it to selling. The vibes on this team are bad. Like they were like really hyped up, you know, like when they had the Hail Mary against the Bears, and like their vibes are really good. And then the following week against the Panthers, he suffered that rib injury, struggled the game back from the ribs. Then he went up against the Steelers. They dominated him. Like he did not look like the same player at all. And I don't think he's looked like the same player since. And people are like, oh, his rushing's back up. It's really not. Like people are just like, okay, he ran 7 times last week and they were really hyped up about it. But like before his injury, he was running 10 to 16 times a game. He has not had more than 7 rushing attempts in a game since that injury. And it's just like, he's really good. And for fantasy, like he has all of the makeup of a guy that you would start week to week. But there's something about the vibes right now and something about the eye test for me, probably because of his injury, where I just don't feel good about it. If you have other options and you actually look at your team week to week and you have someone that you could, you know, think about and discuss, like this is reasonable to start, I think I'm leaning the other way because I just don't feel good about it. I feel like he's only paid off the last couple of weeks in garbage time. And like, they're not really a garbage time team. Like they're a competitive team. Whereas late in the game, they were just like, okay, we're down 2 scores, but it's like, we're down 11. You know what I mean? Like we're not down big and he's just throwing. It's just like a team squeaks away and he just gets a couple touchdowns late. It just doesn't feel good to me. Yeah. And like just starting a guy that like I'm only getting something out of him in the final 10 minutes of a football game, I don't feel good about that.
Yeah. I don't really get concerned about when people score points. I hear what you're saying about like, hey, like you were a fringe QB1 and then you elevated at the end. Like
I think it's I really think that this is not like, it's not that it's garbage time. It's just like I think that his injury is catching up to him.
Yeah.
And I think that he's just squeaking out some weeks where he's saving you. And I just I don't feel like we can expect that to happen every week. And the next 3 games, I don't feel like it could happen.
Yeah. I think the thing though is like, so I ended up swiping right. I'm with you. It was a pretty hard decision. Tennessee doesn't worry me. I like the fact that the last 2 weeks he's run 7 times. The Pittsburgh game, they had him pretty well they had him in the Lamar defense. And I don't know how no one else has figured out what Pittsburgh does against mobile quarterbacks, but they have the blueprint.
It's funny because Tomlin was asked about that, and he said, all we do is play harder. That's all he said. He said, like, we don't have anything schematically. We just play harder.
Yeah. So I think the bye week, as far as that injury, is actually going to be coming at the perfect time because it gives them that time to rest and recoup and get them ready for those last couple games. I do think that I would want to find an alternative situation specifically for Week 16, but the Saints game doesn't really frighten me too terribly. But I would say for the Eagles, like I'd want to be looking for alternative matchups. My thing though, and the reason why I'm still swiping right is just I don't know if there's going to be a better option available to you, and it's like I'm going to ride the guy that got me to where I am.
I picked
like
up Bo Nix 2 weeks ago.
Well, Bo Nix, like if you have Bo Nix, I have some situations where I have both, and I feel comfortable playing Nix there for sure. But if it's going to be like, oh, like am I going to start, oh, I don't know, like Bryce Young with a good matchup over Jayden Daniels, I don't think that I can do that. And that may be trauma from my Davis Mills over Jared Goff against like a terrible Bears matchup a couple years ago. But it's like at some point, like you got to just fight through that and hope that they can be better than what the matchup is.
I feel like we should, for the viewers, pull up like the top 15 quarterbacks from scoring leaders, and we can go through one.
You want to go points per game or total points?
Just do total points, because points per game might bring in guys like Dak Prescott or something that aren't playing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I already have it open, so
I want to see if we could find 10 guys or 12 guys that we might feel better about them.
Sure.
I'm trying to look at my list here. Like, I feel good about Jared Goff. I feel like he hasn't been producing because they've been scoring a lot of rushing touchdowns.
Yeah. Can you see that? You want me to zoom in a little bit?
No, this is good. So, right off the bat, Lamar, you're starting Lamar.
Of course.
You're starting Jalen Hurts.
There's no one above him that I wouldn't start in that situation. Josh Allen, Bo Nix, for sure.
Mahomes is crept back up that I would start Mahomes over him.
It depends on the matchup for me.
He's been really good the last few weeks.
But he's had really good matchups too.
True. I mean, we has another good one now. I don't know what their schedule looks like.
But everything after Knicks, to me, I'm like,
he hasn't been higher than QB9 since he got hurt, besides the last week with the 2-minute QB1.
Sure, but he's also been consistently like QB11 every week.
Yeah.
So like, it's not the QB1 that you were used to, but it's like I don't want to end up with like, oh, like I'm playing Caleb Williams, and then I end up with like a 26 finish.
Yeah, I think for me is like I have a lot of shares of Jayden Daniels.
Yeah.
And it could really just be like I'm watching him score 12 fantasy points deep into the fourth quarter, and I'm just praying for him to get me a little more. And it's been like that for weeks, and that might be why I'm struggling. But I told you this before the show. Like I feel like I don't have a good way to describe how I feel. I just don't like the vibes around him or the team. I feel like they were a guaranteed playoff team before they played the Steelers. I don't feel like they're going to make the playoffs. I just feel like everything is falling apart for them.
I mean, the NFC is also just a gauntlet too.
I just feel like I don't feel good about them as a team or him. And I feel like it's kind of like their magic ran out. And I'm just not sure. We'll see how it works. I mean,
that's just the Kingsbury effect.
It might be like he has a history of just falling off like this, and I don't feel good about it. I just feel like before the last few games, before the Steeler game, I feel like he was a set and forget it QB1. But now I think that it's a conversation week to week, and that's where I'm like selling because I feel like it shouldn't be. And it's just the way he's playing and just the vibes around the team. But we'll see. I mean, I hope that I'm wrong.
We'll see. All right, before we get into Tinder number 2, Forever Eagles, welcome back, my friend. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Should I consider dropping Cam Akers and picking up MVS, plugging him on my flex over Jerry Jeudy, Nick Chubb, and ETN? Westbrook Akeen also on the wire, full PPR. To me, Cam Akers is really just like a handcuff for Aaron Jones.
I would drop him. I picked him up in a few leagues. It was just because I thought Aaron Jones was going to miss time because he suffered an injury a couple weeks ago, but he didn't miss time. So I don't think that he's a guy I would, feel like I need to have. If he gets hurt again, if Aaron Jones ends up getting hurt, hopefully you can get him back. But I feel like if he does get hurt, it's going to be a committee with him and Ty Chandler. That's just kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. Westbrook Akeen, dude.
I would add Westbrook.
He scored touchdowns in 6 of the last 7 games.
I would add Westbrook Akeen with the schedule that they have down the stretch. And Levis likes him.
I like him too. I think he can ball.
I added Westbrook-Ikhine in a few leagues. He was available in dynasty leagues. It was great to find a guy like that this late in dynasty. I would add Westbrook-Ikhine.
Yeah. So where would you start them as far as like matchups for this week? So Cam Akers, yeah, I think that's a drop. Pick up MVS. I like the MVS play. MVS with the Saints. Let's see, what's that matchup looking like? New Orleans, kind of like a meh matchup against the Rams. I don't feel great about it.
MVS has to get a long touchdown.
Yeah.
Though. Like that's the thing with him. He's getting like 3 targets a game. Like he has to score a long one or he won't pay off.
But I think that I would rather play him over Nick Chubb or ETN.
I think I would just play Ikhine.
But I would rather play MVS and Westbrook-Ikhine over Chubb and ETN.
Yeah.
Like I would go Judy, MVS, Westbrook-Ikhine.
Denver's, based on your chart, I feel like has kind of been porous against running backs lately.
18 points per game in the last 3.
It's not very good.
Uh-uh.
That might have been last week that I looked at that one. Because I was looking at the chart before you sent over the updated one.
Maybe.
I mean, I think I would play ETN because Tank Bigsby's out already. So like he's
so then you go Judy, ETN, and then Westbrook-Ikhine over MBS.
Yeah.
I like that. All right. Question from Danny. Should I start Jacoby Myers or Jameson Williams?
This is a good one. This is a good question. I think I know where you would lean.
I'm good. I would lean towards Myers just because I think they're going to eliminate Bowers. They haven't been good against receivers. He already has had a good game against Kansas City, so I expect him to have another good game. He's also my only fantasy for this week. Spoiler alert.
This is tough, honestly. This is going to be the stupidest thing ever, but I'm going to say it anyways.
Record.
Yeah, let me mark this down for the time. That way you know to clip it. I would start Jameson Williams. And the reason why.
You want the Viagra price to go up?
There's just something about starting a Lions player on Thanksgiving. The wide receivers always hit. Like, I remember owning Calvin Johnson and just watching him ball out every Thanksgiving. Amon-Ra St. Brown has the knee injury. Why do I think that Jameson Williams ends up with like 2 touchdowns tomorrow?
I'll tell you why.
Look at this ratio.
It'll never be as good as the first time.
But I do like it. I like the idea.
I think you could start either of them. I just feel like there's something about starting a Lions player on Thanksgiving, and that's why I would lean that way. I feel like watching the game and you enjoy it, unless he gets a goose. Which
yeah. That would be tough for sure. All right, so Danny, you've gotten conflicting info. I will say that my only fantasy picks for like the last like 7 weeks have been trash. So probably stick with Drew on this one. All right, Lions or Bucks on defense. Feel like the Bucks-Panthers game could be a trap game for Tampa Bay. To be honest, I don't really like either matchup. The Bucks defense is horrendous. They've got a lot of injuries. They're pulling guys off the street. I know that the Bucks had like a good matchup as far as they did last week, but Carolina's offense has been moving the ball. Bryce Young has looked like a new person since coming out of that situation of him getting benched. I don't think that I could play the Bucks under any circumstances. So by default, I would choose the Lions. I don't think that I would choose the Lions this week if I had to. I would rather play teams maybe available, someone like the Seahawks. The Cowboys we mentioned earlier in the show. I think the Cowboys are a must start this week. You could also look potentially maybe at the Colts, but the Lions would not be on my radar.
As someone who started the Chiefs last week against Bryce Young, I wouldn't recommend it. especially because Tampa Bay is awful, as you said. But if you don't have any other options you think of, we can just go off my last answer and just go off the vibes, having the Lions on Thanksgiving.
Vibes all the way. And I mean, Detroit all across the board has been phenomenal. Their defense is, even without Hutchinson, phenomenal. Offense obviously been great. Like, they're gonna be tough. They're gonna be a tough out come playoff time. Hi, Amir. What's up, man? McNichols or ETN, assuming that Eckler and B-Rob are both out. Drew, we talked about McNichols a little bit before. You're a big fan. Like him over ETN this week if he's the sole provider.
Yeah, what are the Titans defense looking at in terms of rushing?
Titans are giving up 15.6 points per game in the last 3 weeks. They played Houston, Minnesota, and the Chargers.
It's kind of a tough matchup, but if they miss, I like his work more than ETN's because the Jaguars are just bad. This is tough though. If you go off of the matchup, I think you got to start ETN, but I trust McNichols more.
I don't think that the matchup is that different. It's like 5 points. I don't really feel too strongly. I probably would run with McNichols too. The only thing is, like, do you see a scenario where they're better out of the bye than they were without? I would say no. The only way that I would play ETN is if T-Law plays. Because if they can stack the box and ETN is all that they really have, I don't know. I don't feel great about Mac Jones. So
random thought here. When you said that your OnlyFantasies have been bad the last 7 weeks, did you ruin Ramondre Stevenson?
Probably.
He's been terrible.
I mean, they kind of replaced him last week. So maybe I did. Sorry, Ramondre. My bad, bro. Big fan.
Yeah.
KJ, what's up, my man? Picked up Braylon Allen. Nicely done. Brees might not play this week. Tough loss. Who's better running back to start? Gus Bus or Braylon Allen? Own Monty, hoping he plays full PPR. Allen seems like the easy play to me. Matchup or not, I don't have a lot of faith in the Gus Bus. Braylon Allen has a tough matchup, but I would take that pretty handily. Looking at the Chargers, Atlanta's pretty porous on offense, but I think they're going to attack them through the air if I had to guess. But, yeah, I would – Braylon out. Am I still saying it wrong? Or did I get it right
this time? You got it right this time. Yeah,
okay. Now I'm self-conscious.
Yeah, he probably popped in live. We talked about this during the injury segment. Joe popped off of Braylon Edwards.
Oh, I said Braylon Edwards. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Braylon Allen's a must start if Brees misses.
Yeah.
The volume that he's going to get, I think it's very easy to start him no matter what. I hope Monty plays too. He's a tough guy, but
I think they held him out as a precaution last week.
He already had a touchdown in a solid day, and they were up big. It was just like, what's the point?
Yeah.
The problem is that you can't wait to see if Brees is going to play. So if Monty plays, you have to play him. If you have room to start both, I mean, I would start Braylon Allen as well. But if Monty plays, you're not going to be able to wait because if Brees plays, you're not going to want to start Braylon Allen. So
yeah, good deal. Good stuff. All right, let's go to Fantasy Football Tinder number 2. So let's talk about Jonathan Taylor. So it's been struggling a little bit last few weeks. Drew, my question for you is, are you still a Taylor Park boy?
That was a good question. I didn't see that one coming. Yeah, kitty.
Yeah, that's safe.
Yeah. We talked about this a couple weeks ago as a headline when Anthony Richardson came back. And what I flat out said was, like, it made sense to me. They were falling out of contention. Joe Flacco was basically doing the exact same thing that Anthony Richardson was doing. And if you recall, I flat out said, I was like, if they're going to make Anthony Richardson, they need to take a step back and let him do what he does, which is run the football, do some play action passing, which is weird that Jonathan Taylor's not really a part of that part. But hitting the deep ball with Alec Pierce, they need to focus on Anthony Richardson. They did exactly that. And he had a really big game the week before. I didn't have a chance to touch on that last week with me not being on the show. Last week it was mid. I mean, he had 15 fantasy points, but from a pure football standpoint, I felt like he looks better. He looks like a different football player. But in terms of Jonathan Taylor, he's ruining Jonathan Taylor. He is a guy that you have to start him because you're not going to have a better option, and you potentially, used a first round pick on him. But it's hard to start.
Yeah, and he doesn't get a lot of work in the receiving game either.
That was literally what I was about to say. He has in 6 games with Anthony Richardson, he has 9 targets with Anthony Richardson. You're not getting
Richardson's first game back. Was it against the Jets or the Bills?
Jets, because he had a big game and they came back and won. He let him down the field.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Jonathan Taylor, 9 targets in 6 games. He has 4 touchdowns on the season in those 6 games. All 4 of them occurred at the beginning of the year. One of which was one of the games he had 2. So he's not getting the ball as much in the red zone as of late. Prior to the most recent games, he was getting 70% of the touches inside the 5. That's way down now. He's not being targeted enough that he can be saved by his lack of touchdown production, as we mentioned. And I also don't really like his schedule moving forward.
No, that was the big thing. But you could continue in this, but I'm going to swipe left with you. The schedule was the big thing for me. I mean, on paper, it looks like New England will be a plus matchup, but they've really held it down in the running game the last 3 weeks. You got the bye, and then Denver, Tennessee, New York Giants. You got Jacksonville week 18, but not a lot of people are playing fantasy in week 18.
Yep.
The only game that I feel good about really is the Giants.
Yeah. So the last 2 weeks, if you're lucky enough to get to your championship, or if you do have a championship in week 18, you're doing your semis in week 17, those are the only 2 games that you can feel confident starting them. And
yeah, it's been a brutal schedule. I mean, if you look at this middle half of the year, Houston, Minnesota, Buffalo, Jets, Detroit, that is nasty. And it's not getting much better.
Yeah. So it's this whole thing for them now is just Anthony Richardson. The focus is I don't even know if the focus is on winning games, really.
They got to figure out what they got in their guy.
They have to focus on making him better. And for him to be good, Jonathan Taylor's not going to be good. It's like, in a way, do you think that they regret paying him? Because he doesn't really fit with who Anthony Richardson is.
But how did they not know that before they signed him?
I know. They should have known that.
I'm shocked. This is bold, but I wouldn't be shocked if they traded him in the offseason.
It's possible.
I don't know where. But I could see, we were talking earlier in the show about who's somebody that you could see on a new team next year do really well. Najee comes to mind. Jonathan Taylor seems like he could too.
I think Najee's going to come back. I think that Jaylen Warren and Najee are good together, but they're not good apart. And I feel like the Steelers recognize that. It's going to come down to the money. I don't know if they can move that contract. I don't know if he's someone that you could trade. I don't know. But he's not a guy that you can feel good about starting. He's RB23 on a points per game basis, only at 13.9. And a lot of that is due to Anthony Richardson. He was only over 15 points 3 times, 50% of the time with Anthony Richardson. In one of those games, Anthony Richardson left in the first quarter against the Steelers.
Gotcha.
You're starting a guy that you're lucky to get 11 points out of, because that's really where his threshold's been with Anthony Richardson in the lineup.
Makes sense.
You look like someone's trying to get a hold of you from work.
Yeah, they were. Oh, well, the show must go on. So, you got any last minute questions for us? We're hitting an hour on the show. So hit those, send those our way. We'll make sure we get those answered. We are going to jump into our last segment of the day, which is the OnlyFantasy predictions, aka Joe will take a L, part of the show. So essentially what we do is each week we pick one person to pretty much predict that they think they're going to have a good week. Drew, obviously weren't here last week, so I'll let you get caught up on my miseries from last time. Jono had picked Jahmyr Gibbs 2 touchdowns, 21 carries, 90 yards. He had 3 receptions on 9 yards, 3 targets. He was RB4 per his daughter's requests, and the purr was not in reference to it being a cat, but the cat laugh was laughing all the way to the bank. So 1 for 1 lifetime OnlyFantasy now takes over as the most accurate OnlyFantasy predictor in around the 412 fantasy football history. I selected Marvin Harrison Jr. 3 catches for 46 yards, no touchdowns, wide receiver 49. Even a genie couldn't help me make a good pick right now. So that's where I got my emoji. So Drew, you are kind of the pro at this. Let's see where you land. I'm sure it'll flip to your name once we get a pick for you. But yeah, what do you got for me?
Before I go into it, I need to make sure that you know what my Here Kitty Kitty reference was. Do you know the show Trailer Park Boys?
Yeah.
Okay, because Shit Rock the kitty.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I just need to make sure.
That's why I did the.
Cool. Anyways, OnlyFantasy. I've already made it pretty clear throughout this show that I just love starting players on Thanksgiving. It's just something about the vibes, just watching your guys. I bet very heavily on Thanksgiving too. Last year I lost a lot of money.
You did bet pretty heavy last year. That's right. I remember that.
I basically have like a whiteboard in my house on Super Bowl and Thanksgiving that just lists like 30 bets, and I start crossing off legs of parlays as the day goes on. Like it's great. But I'm going to stick with that vibe. I'm going to go with someone that is playing on Thanksgiving. Experts are calling this the nap game. I hope Rico Dowdle is not napping during this game. His matchup is so good. We kind of alluded to this already when we were talking about the Giants with Jonathan Taylor. Like, that's the one matchup you think you can get from him. But Rico Dowdle, he's emerged as the guy. I kind of have like a weird vibe and nerve that they might just try to get Zeke a touchdown. That way he can jump in a Salvation Army kettle again, but I'm hoping that that's not the case. Maybe Rico Dowdle can be that guy this time. But over the last few weeks, the Giants went up against the Buccaneers last week, which their running back room, I told you before the show, is like very weird, like mid, like in terms of like their efficiency. That's just a bunch of guys that are getting 10 carries and like 5 receptions, but like they dominated across the board. Bucky Irving had 12 carries for 87 yards, a touchdown, 6 receptions for 64. He was RB3 last week. Rashad White ended up as RB17. So they had 2 guys in the top 20, 2 startable running backs. In week 10, across the pond, Chuba Hubbard destroyed them. He was RB2 that week, 28 carries for 153 yards and a touchdown. They're giving up a lot in the passing game as well, which Rico Dowdle has been able to do that this season. We saw him score a touchdown against our Pittsburgh Steelers earlier this year. Like, he offers you a little bit in the passing game. I think that he's going to get some in the passing game. He's going to pay off. They've given up at least 15 fantasy points in 5 of the last 7 games. And if you're getting 15, you can feel good about them being on a fringe, like top 15 running
especially
back.
at the running back position for sure.
Yeah. So like, I feel good about them at least paying off as a guy that's definitely startable. And I mean, he's available in one of my leagues, one of my redraft leagues. Like, no one even picked him up.
And based off the snap counts that he's been getting, he's kind of like Zeke is no longer a factor in this offense.
Yeah. That's why I'm just like, it's going to be like he's vultured just because they wanted to get him involved. But Rico Dowdle's emerged as the guy. He has, like I mentioned, a phenomenal matchup. And I'm just looking forward to, if I'm able to stay awake, watching him score fantasy points. That's my only fantasy.
Nice. Very well done. I looked at Rico Dowdle too. Definitely a good pick. No regrets there. I am going to an old friend of mine. Jacoby Myers is my pick for this week. So, like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of questions about what's going to happen with AOC being the quarterback this week. Kansas City, that defense is obviously pretty good, but the one area of weakness that they do have is against wide receivers. They're giving up 44.3 points in their last 3 games, Denver, Buffalo, Carolina, their opponents. So not really like world beaters in that regard, but it's the second best matchup on paper. Jacoby Myers, the last time that they played, he had 7 targets, 6 receptions, 52 yards, and a touchdown. If we look at him last week, 15 targets against Denver, and that was supposed to be like a pretty tough matchup for wide receivers. So I like what's going on there. I think teams are really starting to hammer in on Brock Bowers, given that they have all these injuries on the ground. They're going to have to throw the ball, so it might take 20 targets to get him there. But I think he's going to get an ample chance. I think he finds the end zone this week, and maybe I get back on the good side of graces. Downside for Jacoby Myers is that he probably gets benched after this because I picked him. But you live and you learn. Should have became a Steeler. Not my fault. But
I know why you've been struggling in OnlyFantasy. So for the chat, I do 1 DFS lineup per week trying to hit the Millie Maker. I always start our guys. Whoever we choose for OnlyFantasy, I immediately put them in the lineup first. I haven't been able to use Joe's guy for several weeks because he keeps picking guys that are outside the slate. Jacoby Myers is outside the slate. So if he has a bad game.
Man, it all makes sense. So I need to pick players that are in the slate. There we go.
Guys that play on Sunday in the 1 or 4 o'clock.
It's on me. I clearly have not been reading the room here, so that's good feedback. We'll take it back to our GM and see what happens.
And a lot of the ones that I hit on were not in the slate, so it's like the opposite. Like a lot of the guys that I chose over the past like month and a half have been guys that were playing in London or something.
Yeah,
and they hit. It's weird.
Yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. It's all in good fun though. But seeing as we have no questions in the chat, we'll wrap things up for the week. I know it's going to happen. You guys are going to hear me say that. Everybody's going to fire off questions. So we're going to tell us where you can find us. So on X, AT412FF show. Find our personal handles on our screen. So at JOEFRK, at Drew Hannes. If you want to find us on the Blue Sky, we're in there somewhere too.
I'd love to get some exposure on the Blue Sky because I would like to stop seeing porn bots and ads on X. I'm sick of it.
Hey. Everybody has a different taste. I've been getting a lot of like weird like PMs from like random spam bots now too.
Ads are just like every single time I watch a video, it scrolls right up to another ad. Every single time. Like I'm sick of the ads on X. It's terrible.
But if you're looking for more content for the fantasy show or just for Around the 412 in general, find us on YouTube or on Twitch at Around the 412. One last thing we will mention now that it is the holiday season. We are hitting the ground running with our Rockin' Around the 412 Year 7 fundraiser. We have already got 60 children in the Pittsburgh area sponsored for the Salvation Army and Giving Tree, as well as some other initiatives that we have. So if you are interested in helping us out with that cause, I would love to see 100 kids get donated. My goal for the year was to get 30. So we are smashing this. So shout out to Zach, Tyler. They're really putting the work in. Couldn't be more proud of being part of this group. But you can donate to the GoFundMe that's listed in the description of this channel. You can also find us online, or if you are a fan of a team that's playing against the Steelers, I will put up $25 every time that your team plays us. And if they win, we both pay for Around the 412 fantasy, or not the fantasy show, but the Rockin' Around the 412. If your team wins, I'll donate to a charity of your choice. So go Steelers in that regard. But Drew, it's week 13. It is the night before Thanksgiving, which is the biggest party night of the year. Any closing thoughts?
It's the biggest like night for me to just go order a pizza and just destroy all 8 slices.
Papa John's, of course.
When are we gonna be over this? My gosh.
Never.
Pizza Hut. No one out pizzas the Hut. They paying me for that?
No.
Make sure you post pictures of your plates tomorrow. Tag Joe. He's interested in seeing all of it.
Hey, and one other Thanksgiving pro tip: if you're in a new relationship, put the person that you're bringing to Thanksgiving on the edge, so that when you inevitably take them out of the picture in a couple months, that it doesn't ruin the rest of the family.
My gosh.
So, with that being said, we'd only do fantasy football advice, so we'll leave it at that. But I'm Joe Frick. That's Drew Hannes. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Be safe out there, kids. And we'll see you next week to eat those W's.